Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we really try to crack open compelling ideas and give you the inside track. Today, we're plunging into an artistic venture that's well, it's so unique it might just reshape how you think about value itself. Imagine this, an acclaimed artist. Instead of selling her work, she's gifting hundreds of paintings. And it's not just, a simple giveaway. It's meant as a profound statement, a really radical act challenging our deepest ideas about art, its worth, and even like human connection. Our focus today is this compelling concept called Izipho, that's pronounced Izipho. We're looking at it through the artist Bokani's own writings. Our sources explore her vision, her inspirations, and the honestly radical implications of her choice to just give. So our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack Bokani's journey a bit, explore her pretty powerful critique of the, let's say, conventional art world, and discover what this act of radical generosity might suggest about other ways of valuing things, relating to each other, creating. Get ready for some, maybe, aha moments, because this really pushes the boundaries, on ownership and worth.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Bokani. She's a Zimbabwean-born artist, living and working in London. Her artistic practice is really distinctive. She uses these vibrant colors to, as she puts it, dematerialize familiar objects. What she means by that, I think, is she sort of breaks them down from their solid, everyday look, trying to reveal the hidden power structures, the social meanings inside them, really aiming to spark conversations about those hidden dynamics. And she also uses stained glass mirrors, which literally confront viewers with themselves. They create these ephemeral light inventions. They sound stunning.
Yeah, and what's really insightful is how her background feeds into all this. Her Catholic upbringing, with its focus on spiritual purpose beyond just the material, and then her study of political economy, which is all about dissecting power systems, value distribution. They really weave together. This kind of dual lens lets her explore identity, sanctity, liberation, all those big themes, but not just personally, also how art functions in society's wider economic and political systems. And she's clearly been on this path for a while. She had her first solo museum show at the National Gallery of Zimbabwe in Bulawayo back in 2023.
Right. And Izipho sounds like a huge part of that journey, a big milestone. It celebrates the 10th anniversary of her first solo show in London. So from September 5th to 7th, Bokani's gifting hundreds of paintings she's made over this whole first decade, and she's inviting friends, and her definition is really broad, like as closely and as broadly and warmly as possible, to her studio. They can freely select artworks for themselves or even to gift to others. It's this very open invitation to share in abundance.
And that expansive idea of friends and the act of giving itself, it really connects to the core meaning of Izipho. The Indabele word apawi is key. It means you are gifted, like talented, right? But crucially, it also means you have been given. And that totally frames how Bokani sees her own art. She says she experiences these paintings as coming through me, not necessarily as something I've earned or deserved. That really shifts the whole paradigm, doesn't it? From artist as master creator to artist as conduit. It's not just some quirky artist statement, it's redefining value in a way that goes way beyond art. It touches how we view any output, really, earned or gifted. For her, painting is an ecstatic experience. Each piece is a revelation of what it feels like to be really free. I don't know, the aha here, I think, is realizing just how ingrained our meritocratic views are and how directly she's challenging them.
Yeah, that sense of creative freedom is, you can almost feel it. Bokani says she hasn't consciously worked towards giving these paintings away, but they were definitely created without much obedience to the rules of the art market and its edicts. She describes this gifting as the most natural fruit of the tree of a free type of making, a real act of self-determination. It sounds like it just flowed out of her process.
It absolutely does. And it brings up a really important point about the creative process itself. Bokani explains she used to think paintings came just from her imagination, but now she sees them more as mystical revelations, like a garden for my imagination to flourish. She says she can never fully know them, and this is where it gets really profound. She cites the Gospel of Thomas, saying 70, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you."
Wow. It sounds almost like a divine imperative,
Yeah.
to create and then to share. That really sets the stage for her critique of the traditional art market then. When she says her artworks are not repetitive, nor do they fit into a neat format that can be predicted and forecast for sale, that's a huge departure, isn't it? It sounds like she's deliberately resisting those market pressures.
Precisely. Because investors, collectors, they usually expect a recognizable style, right? Something that sustains and hopefully grows the financial value. She connects this to Shoshana Zuboff's ideas on surveillance capitalism, how human experience gets turned into data to predict and monetize. Bokani sort of applies that logic to the art world. When collectors demand a predictable style, they're trying to mine and monetize the artist's creativity. But Bokani is emphatic that financial value is not the primary or even tertiary worth of my making art. It's just not the point for her. And she definitely doesn't pull punches about institutional complicity either. She observes how many artists get defined by their proximity to power. CVs, listing institutions, awards named after or funded by industrialists, or their foundations doing reputation laundering. She argues that what is generally exhibited poses no threat to the corporatist structures that oppress most of society. That's a bold claim. How does she see that playing out?
Well, it raises the crucial question, what's the consequence of this system? Bokani says she feels naive for seeking models and examples of liberation in these environments. And she echoes Audre Lorde's famous line, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." She talks about the gold handcuffs for successful artists, where recognition comes with these subtle constraints, and then the noble destitution for others, where tiny fees actually disincentivize speaking truth to power. She even references Michael Sandel's The Tyranny of Merit, which criticizes the idea that success is purely earned, arguing it ignores systemic advantages. Bokani sees that meritocratic pressure right there in the art world. What's really, as she puts it, delicious, is her take on art's, uselessness to capitalism. She finds something delicious about the ways in which these artifacts are not useful to capitalism, the way in which gifting them creates a new relationship. She feels better about not contributing to paintings being flown from, art fair to art fair all over the globe. It's almost this playful act of defiance.
It really is. And she thought about this deeply when she was back in Zimbabwe. She was asking, what is art really for, especially when people's first worries are basic things like water and electricity? And she realized art has this profound role in ritual and in ceremony and in conferring sovereignty. It can be a source and a form of consolation, a balm of recognition of the intensely raw experience of being alive. That's a world away from just being a commodity.
Now, for people who have bought her paintings, or might in the future, she offers something really interesting to think about. The parable of the workers in the vineyard, from Matthew. She quotes that story where workers hired at different times all get the same pay, and the ones who work longer start grumbling. It's that classic story of generosity versus perceived fairness.
Absolutely. And that parable helps her frame this whole gifting thing. It suggests value isn't necessarily about what's earned, but about generosity, about what is given freely. And she finds it deeply satisfying that if her art does become financially valuable down the line, the people who own them will have done nothing to deserve them, that they are not earned. It just completely flips the script on meritocracy, suggesting value isn't always tied to effort or buying power, but maybe to grace. It really makes you pause and question our built-in biases around earning and deserving, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So moving into her vision for the future, Bokani sees making art as a way of transforming, metabolizing the traumatic so that I don't transmit it. And it's also about experiencing beauty, recognizing the divinity that is alive in all of us. She calls her artworks prayers, the portals to different worlds, into a different way of existing. That's a powerful personal motivation. How does that very intimate, almost therapeutic aspect connect with her bigger vision of decentralizing art and challenging the market?
Well, I think it's all part of the same kind of radical intention. If art can heal the individual, maybe it can help heal systems too. By making her art these prayers or portals for herself, she's also creating those entry points for others, making the art's power accessible outside the usual gatekeepers. She mentions being inspired by Justin Scott's irrelevism, which basically looks at what happens when things lose their traditional relevance or use, opening up new possibilities. So Bokani's exploring practicing a decentralized way of being an artist. She wonders if her community can be my archive. She sees this as a nonviolent, direct action means of resistance, but also a means of building something new.
That sounds like a huge leap of faith, though, and honestly, a pretty big risk. I mean, many artists struggle just to make a living. Financial value is often seen as a key measure of success, even survival. How does Bokani's radical gifting idea address those practical realities? Or are they just fundamentally incompatible with a traditional art career?
That's a really crucial question, and she's very aware of those challenges. She makes a point of saying this choice isn't some kind of spiraling or crashing out. It's a deliberate decision made in complete freedom and risk. Her specific path might not be replicable for everyone, sure, but her point isn't necessarily that every artist must give away their work. She admits feeling fear, she's intrigued by it, and she wonders if this fear is part of what keeps us from being generous.
Yeah.
So her act is more about questioning why we define artistic success so narrowly by money. It's about encouraging us to reimagine what success and value could really mean, maybe more in terms of community or spiritual richness.
That's a fascinating reframe. She's also intrigued by what happens to us when we're in the posture of recipients. What does she hope that posture unlocks in people?
She seems to believe there are goods whose value grows from their abundance, from their not being hoarded by me or anyone else. She hopes that by doing this publicly, she gives others the permission to experiment, play, and take risks in their own lives, too. It's like modeling a different way of being where receiving isn't passive, but an active engagement with abundance.
And thinking about legacy, Bokani notes, no monument lasts forever. Apparently, the theft of her father's tombstone really hit her hard, made her realize how ephemeral our footprints are. She asks, what is sacred anymore? Especially when we only see something as valuable if it can be sold. It really makes you think about what truly lasts.
It does, and it brings up that question again, how do we define value? Bokani challenges the whole idea of giving with expectations attached. She believes it is in giving that we receive. She mentioned she's chewing on this Ndebele phrase, yukutha impala, which literally means a spilling of possessions. It suggests something messy, like an unboundaried way of giving without real structure. And she connects the wild nature of this type of flow painting she does to a kind of socio-spiritual rewilding, letting things flow more organically. And she finds it deeply satisfying that her village or community gets to participate in any success that I will have. It becomes shared.
So if I'm getting this right, she's basically saying the traditional art market has these gatekeepers, almost like priests guarding the Eucharist as a reward for piety. And she's asking, what if we all had access to what is precious? Would this faux scarcity not fall apart? She hopes her gifting makes her artworks self-generate and multiply, that more will become of my little fish and loaves. It's a call for real access over manufactured exclusivity.
Exactly. And zooming out, this challenges a much broader societal norm. Bokani says she won't shrink myself to fit a more comfortable size for the insecure because she believes we are all immense. She wants to suggest that we all have equity in each other's lives, with all the messiness, the friction, inconvenience, and joyful elation that brings. It offers a powerful alternative to the dominant, often competitive narrative, suggesting other, more collaborative ways we can relate.
And in this shifting paradigm, what does she actually trust in? She asks that question at Uthembeni. In whom or what do you trust really depend? Having seen economic and political collapse in Zimbabwe and thinking about an AI future, she doesn't put her trust in things like pensions or corporate jobs. She sees them as flimsy and temporary shelter in what she calls a rigged game.
Yeah, and what's really compelling here is her almost radical trust. Bokani says she's experienced immense and unearned generosity and care and love in her life. And she's able to give like this because she trusts in that deep well of human connection, of grace, even as our world falls apart. Her ultimate statement, it's one of profound faith, really. It's simply, I trust in us, I trust you.
Wow. Bokani's radical act of gifting her art really prompts us to question the very foundation of value, doesn't it? It urges us to